Hi, I'm Matt with Bardic Inspiration, and if you've seen us before, it's most likely due to our tavern-style music videos or from other D&D content. If it's your first time, welcome to the channel. Now, being the nerd that I am, I decided to learn something new over the last year. At the time, my friends and I were discussing a new D&D campaign. We're really big fans of the Hero Forge system for custom miniatures, and no, this isn't a paid advertisement, I just enjoy their service. The only issue is that the miniatures arrive unpainted, or at least they used to, and pre-painted WizKids minis can be hit or miss, to say the least. Like everyone else at the tail end of 2020, I had a ton of free time on my hands, so I decided to solve two problems at once and learn how to paint miniatures for my friends. I bought some acrylic paints and cheap brushes and practiced on some really cheap miniatures. Now, this little ninja guy is the first miniature I ever painted. You can't really see him. I was super proud of how it looked when I was done, but I was guessing the entire time. It took me hours, and yes, I mean hours, to get this very basic result. I scoured YouTube for help, but I knew I needed actual experience for any advice to really help. So I painted this little army guy. I don't know if you can see that. Nope, not really. Painted this little army guy, which turned out really bad. And then I painted this little Master Chief, which turned out really good, surprisingly. My next step was trying to replicate a paint job. So I grabbed some more cheap miniatures that were part of a set, and I tried to paint them all the same way. These cartoonish orcs served their purpose, and I slapped paint over the entire thing. I cleaned up the edges a little bit, then put on a metric ton of black wash. They don't look great, but they were a step up for my first few miniatures. And the important thing is that I painted all these guys in the same amount of time it took me to paint the ninja, army guy, or even Master Chief. Then I took to painting some knights from the same set of minis, and they looked pretty terrible. The main color wasn't black, so it felt like every color choice I made was a disaster. I painted them as well as I could and shelved them before I could get even more discouraged. I could probably sit here and pick out 1,000 details about how bad these first minis are, but that wasn't the point of painting them. If you see the progression of quality, there starts to be an exponential curve to how good these minis turn out. Pretty sure everybody knows what an exponential curve is. It's hard to be great at painting, but it's easy to be good enough. I mean, seriously, look at the factory standard. A month into starting this process, I was painting this miniature. We used him as Langdodroza Cyanrath in our Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign. It took me about 8 hours over a few days to finish the paint job, and we killed him in our second encounter. But that's besides the point. What I learned in a month led to this level of quality, and now a year later I can replicate this quality of miniature in half the time, maybe even a quarter of the time. Are there things I could have done better? Absolutely, but this video isn't a critique on my painting, it's an encouragement that you can do better than this. And shout out to me for taking this long to get to the point. There are some great looking pre-painted miniatures these days, but they are few and far between. I don't mean to hate on Critical Role because I absolutely love their content, but even the miniatures they've released don't really live up to my standard for painted miniatures, to this standard of miniature. And this only took about a month of practice to create. We could pick out 1,000 details that suck about this mini, and if I entered into a competition, I'd have gotten ripped apart. But everyone I've shown this mini to has marveled over it. It's not some unbelievably beautiful painted miniature, but it's miles above the factory standard. So clicking on this video means you're probably considering getting into the hobby. Maybe you've thought about it for a long time and it seems intimidating. Trust me, it is worth getting into the hobby. At least give it a shot. Maybe you already paint and you've stalled out on your progress. Pick up one of your miniatures, take it to a friend of yours that doesn't paint, and let them blow your mind. It's hard to be great, but it's so easy to be good. I do understand stalling out. I said the curve is exponential, but that might not be fully accurate. It's exponential at first. Once you feel like you've stalled out in your progress, you have a huge number of roads to go down. Pick something you want to improve on and paint a mini with that in mind. Maybe it's learning to highlight or shade better. Maybe it's dry brushing or another technique. Maybe you're a psychopath and want to learn how to paint non-metallic metal. That is your deal and not mine, and more power to you. I don't consider myself a fantastic painter, and I probably never will. When you see some of the things that channels like Squidmar, Miniac, or Ninjon pump out effortlessly like a Mormon family's 9th child, you tend to forget that they had to start where you are right now. Remember that they didn't wake up one day with the ability to wet blend. Like every other skill, and art truly is a skill, it takes a little bit of dedication and lots of practice. Develop that skill and you'll surprise yourself how quickly you progress. That's decent advice for anything in life. So, what's the goal I'm working on next? Well, I just finished moving into a new apartment, and I don't want this huge backlog sitting here gathering dust. I'd like to finish all of the minis I'm not excited about, so when I'm ready to paint again, I can start with the minis I am excited about. Life is about to get really busy, and I don't have the time to paint anything that I don't really want to paint. My goal is to paint a mini as quickly as possible while still rising above that factory standard. I know, very high bar. Here's the plan. First step is batch painting. I separate the minis into groups. Here's some Knolls, some Sahuagin, and a group of minis that I'll use the same main color for. Second step is choosing a color. I've never used Games Workshop's contrast paints, but I'm really excited to try them out. Word on the street is they can really help speed up the paint time. I'll use these guys as much as I can, then go through and touch up the other areas, add some basic shades, some highlights, then spray a clear coat on them and box them up. Ready for a montage? Let's go. So initially with these Knolls, right, I was using Wildwood for like their skin tones, but to touch up some of these places on the edges of their fur, and I kind of want to keep them a little lighter, so I'm going to go switching to Skeleton Horde, and we're going to see how that works. I've never used these really before, so I'm just kind of lightly layering it on. Okay, so that is pretty much all of the finishing touches on these guys. While I was fixing these guys up, I just wanted to show some other things that I've painted recently. So this is an Iron Golem. You know, really easy paint job. I deliberated on a lot of different, choices for this guy. Eventually I got to a point where I just didn't really want to keep going, which happens sometimes. What I did have a really fun time painting was the base for it, because I got to do kind of this magical effect. And you can kind of see that. It's got some potions laying on the ground there. I had to rebase this miniature, which the name is escaping me, but we also use this mini for Horde of the Dragon Queen. These other two minis, it's just a goblin and a boar. Had to rebase those. Then there's this tiefling, this little magic user, could be a wizard, sorcerer, most likely a sorcerer or warlock. Decent time painting this miniature. I really liked the blue for the tiefling skin. I used a contrast paint for that magical effect, and it's kind of hard to see on camera, but it gives the translucent feel of the clear plastic. Just finishing up this last Sahuagin's skin, at least the base tone. These guys are ready to move on to the next step. Being a little careful here. Okay, so another trick to speed up your paint times, right? Find areas that you can reuse the same paint on the miniature. I'm using that Carrick Stone that I put on the base for the sand. I have applied that to a few other areas to the clothing or the armor of the Sahuagin. It all depends on how you highlight and shade from there, so I can kind of save time by base coating a lot of the same things the same color, and then shading down or highlighting up to a different overall presentation. So now I'm moving on to a base coat of the purple pants or skirt, however you want to refer to it on the Sahuagin. This is Xarius Purple. Experimenting with some of the camera angles, and I think I like this one a lot. If you are a baseball fan, comment down below who your team is. I'm a huge Cincinnati Reds fan. That's who I'll be working with this summer. Actually, the funny thing is throughout this entire process, I've been getting these updates on free agency. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are on the sport of baseball down below. I'd love to talk baseball with any of our fans out there. Painting is a lot easier when you have something else going on in the background. I know what I am doing amidst checking my phone for Twitter updates and the inevitable news that Nick Castellanos is signed with probably the Phillies right now, it looks like. But I am actually playing some RuneScape. This has been fun. comment below if you're having fun, everybody. I definitely enjoy feedback, and I truly do want to make this a place where people feel comfortable asking questions, because we're all just trying to get better at this. So I'm just going back over some of the blue skin areas just to touch up some mistakes that I made. I couldn't help myself. I'm going to go ahead and do some light highlights. I don't love how some of these are looking, but I'm going to try to blend it back down with that original shade color that we were using, the Druchii Violet, and we're going to see if we can darken it up. All of those knolls and all these Sahuagin completely painted up. But I like how this ended up. I like how the colors pop out. You can really see some of the details in that. And it really didn't take that much time. It definitely could get faster as I learn how to use these contrast paints a little bit more. This Talisar Blue definitely would recommend. I think it covers really, really well. But that's all I got at the table. Let's get to the end of the video. So there it is. I've gotten nearly everything finished up, and I'm so happy that it's done with. My backlog wasn't as crowded as others I've seen, but even having a handful of minis sitting around collecting dust can really start weighing on you. So if this video hasn't inspired you to pick up your first paintbrush, maybe it's a lesson on procrastination. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders having these minis done. Most of the time I push things off because I think of all the things I'd rather be doing. But this prolonged procrastination makes me feel guilty, and that's not really something I want to take with me throughout this entire year. Let's start doing more together. I think it'll end up more rewarding than anyone will expect. So here's a look at some of the minis I'll be painting next. I might live stream the process, so if you're interested in that, let me know down in the comments. I have an entire Age of Sigmar army to paint, including all of my brother's Lumineth Realm Lords, so I'm far from over. That's not even considering the minis I've purchased from Etsy or the premium WizKids minis I have. There's Asirarak, Drist, the Black Order, my ASMR Paladin I should be playing soon, Grimbo, my half-ogre, half-orc barbarian, Kit Bash incoming, and this massive war elephant that I bought for my D&D campaign. No spoilers. These are minis I have a clear idea on and can properly test my progress. Maybe my new mini painting family here on YouTube can help me out when it comes to the next things I learn in order to paint better miniatures. There are tons of channels out there dedicated to teaching various techniques. My #1 recommendation is Dr. Faust's Painting Clinic, so I'd rather use these videos to hold myself accountable and continue to show that progress is only made by practice. Do the thing. That's my message. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know by giving it a like, comment what techniques you've struggled with in the past, or anything that helped you learn how to paint minis better or more efficiently. If you've seen this channel before, please consider subscribing, as it undeniably helps small creators like us continue posting content. If this is your first time seeing me, check out all the other wonderful videos popping up on your screen right now. Thank you all for watching. Be good to each other.